hello there. Ooh. Careful now. Today we're going to be making 4 international coffee drinks that you likely have never heard of. These are all very, very tasty. I'm very excited to show these to you today, and they're all pretty easy to make. So you can very easily do these at home. But without further ado, because I'm very excited for today, let's just get started. I don't know if I've mentioned enough how much I love having these little trays for all of our drink setups. Now, seemingly appropriate for the topic of coffee and specifically espresso, we're going to be starting today in Italy with the Cafe Shakerato. This is a drink that is very, very commonplace in cafes in the summer. Super easy to make because functionally it is only 3 ingredients. We have freshly pulled espresso, we have sugar, and then we also have ice. As far as tools that you will need a cocktail shaker. I'm using one that has 2 tins, so I have a strainer, and then additionally you'll need some sort of small cocktail glass. Something like a martini glass or like a small coupe like this will work super well. But let's assemble. Now, one thing I'll say before we start assembling this, and this is also applicable to the other drinks, is that because these are very traditional drinks, they have kind of evolved into all sorts of small variations. I'm going to do my best with all of these to make them as basic as possible, but with this recipe and with others, this is very much fitted to your own taste. So if you like something a little bit sweeter, a little bit less sweeter, that is fully within your agency to do. Now, for the Cafe Shakerato, I have some cane sugar right here. I know from practice and making these a bunch of times, this is about 5 grams in total, but it's a nice little spoonful. Drop that in our shaker. This is a full double shot of espresso. It is approximately 40 mils. I think 40 to 50 mil shots of espresso are nice here. Drop that in, give it a little swirl, start that sugar melting, and then we'll pile in our ice. For this, I like to use a lot of ice. I think I'm using by weight around 200 grams here. We're going to be shaking this for a while, and we also have very hot espresso, so it's going to dilute quite a bit. Now, the key here is in the shaking. We're going to be whipping all of these ingredients together, both aerating and chilling the drink, so shake longer than you think is necessary. I think usually between 30 and 45 seconds is what I usually do. So, if you'll pardon me, off I go. As you can see, I'm a little bit out of breath, and my tin is fully chilled. Now we simply strain into our coupe. Oh, this one turned out very good indeed. Sometimes they don't, I'll just tell you that much. As you can see here, because we whipped and aerated and frothed that for a good long while, you have this very distinct kind of head that is formed on top. Espresso, coffee, it has a lot of oils and fats in that extraction, so those get all agitated with that ice, with the sugar. It creates a very distinct mouthfeel. I'm gonna garnish with some coffee beans. You know, it's not an espresso martini, but I think it's kind of fun if it looks like one. It's kind of your daytime espresso martini. And that, simply enough, is the Cafe Shakerato. Let's enjoy. It's so delicious. Lightly sweet, very, very coffee forward, chilly, refreshing, punchy. It's wonderful. At 2 p.m. on a sweltering hot day, this is what you want to drink. But we've got several more coffee drinks to go, so allow me to clean up and I'll be right back.
I want to give a huge thank you to Trade Coffee for sponsoring today's video. We've all got different coffee preferences, whether that means different roast levels, brewing methods, cream or no cream, blend versus single origin, or cold versus hot. One of my favorite things about coffee is the nearly never-ending range of flavors and things you can do with it. However, I will admit that sometimes that can lead to frustration when you find one thing that you like and want more of it without knowing exactly what you're looking for. But this is where Trade comes in. Trade is a coffee subscription service, and they offer tailored subscriptions that will provide you with more of what you love without any of the guesswork or quizzing. Their subscription collections include different roast levels, brewing methods, caffeination levels, and more. They work with dozens of independent coffee roasters all over the US, and every coffee is roasted to order and shipped within 48 hours. So, if you're ready to get started with no-fuss coffee subscriptions that'll give you more of what you love, you can get your first bag for free when you subscribe at drinktrade.com/ drinktrade.com/MDC. Again, that's a free bag of coffee when you subscribe at drinktrade.com/MDC. And thank you again to Trade for sponsoring today's video.
Oh, I still feel a little bit out of breath for the amount of vigorous shaking I did. Now we're gonna move over to Vietnam and make a very traditional Vietnamese coffee. Now, Vietnamese as a language is a tonal language, so I'll apologize ahead of time for any mispronunciation, but we are going to be making Phê Sữa Đá. This is a simple, delicious drink, and again, it really only takes 2 ingredients, but they look a little bit different than they did before. Over here, I have some very lovely ground Vietnamese coffee. Specifically, this is a darker roasted Robusta coffee, which is what you find primarily in Vietnam. This flavor profile is very important for the drink we're gonna make. I also have sweetened condensed milk. This is gonna be both the cream and the sweetening aspect of this drink. As for the tools we're gonna need today, I have our service cup. I have some water heated back there. Then I also have our brewer. This is a Vietnamese Phin. It's a small single serving brewer, very easy to use, very fun to use. So let's get making this. Once more, as is kind of my favorite part about all of these drinks, this is very much a measure with your heart sort of scenario. Now, I'm gonna preheat my brewer slightly. Pop some water in there. Some people will add their sweetened condensed milk after the coffee brewing. Some people will add it before. I tend to be in the before group. So place your appropriate or preferred amount of sweetened condensed milk in the bottom of your cup. Again, when I say to taste, this is to taste for your own preferences. I like to do just enough to kind of cover the bottom. You can always add more, you can't take away. Phin on top. Load in your coffee. Now, the top filter goes in just enough to slightly press that coffee down. Doesn't need to be super hard. Then we'll have our water. I like to let this all bloom for a couple seconds or so. Then we'll start with our main pour. This is a pretty hands-off process. Usually a Phin when brewing takes about 5 minutes, kind of on the upper range, like 3 to 5 minutes is usually a pretty good range. All right, all that water has bloomed. Let's fill it up and let it brew. And this lovely little cap goes on top. I will say, this is probably one of my favorite brewers to look at from the bottom. This is a very slow dripping brewer. Usually that first drop happens between like 45 seconds and a minute, and then you just let it do its thing from there. So when this finishes, I'll be right back with you. See you soon. All right, a very small, concentrated, but sweet coffee. Let's stir it up. Now, this is most definitely a drink that you can enjoy hot. Very nice. But if it's summer, like it is right now, you can also very easily enjoy it cold by simply piling in some ice cubes. Hand-flavored ice, if you will. And there you have it. A very rich, refreshing, and yet very caffeinated, very powerful cup of Phê Sữa Đá. Now, I have a particular fondness for this specific drink, so I could crush that very easily, but we have 2 more drinks to go, so let's move over to Cuba. Okay, we are now in Cuba. Give or take a couple locations. Now, we're going to be making the Café Cubano with a cafecito. Once more, we're combining coffee and sugar in once more a slightly different way than we did before. Now, for this, we're going to be using mocha pot coffee. Now, similar to the Phin, this makes something that is very strong, very, very robust in flavor. Mocha pots are sometimes called espresso makers. What they make definitely isn't like a true espresso. However, because of the intensity of flavor, it can definitely be used in replacement for espresso. So this is the type of coffee we're going to be using. We're going to be using a very dark, very traditional Cuban coffee. We will need some sort of mixing vessel. I'm using a milk pitcher and a spoon here. We have our final demi-tossed serving cups. Then additionally, we have some granulated sugar. For my readings and kind of research here, you can use all sorts of different types of sugar. I think just like cane sugar tends to be the most common. However, brown sugar, turbinado, all sorts of different kinds can offer different flavor profiles. Now I've got my little hot plate warming up over there. Let's assemble a mocha pot. I have done videos about mocha pots in the past. I'm not gonna really review anything. I'm also not gonna do anything fancy here. We're keeping it as basic and traditional as possible. We're gonna be measuring with our hearts and our eyes today, which frankly is kind of my favorite way to do a mocha pot anyways. For this drink, I think having a really traditional like dark coffee like Cafe Bustelo or something similar is really valuable. It really like is the flavor profile that this drink needs. It kind of tastes like grandma's kitchen in like the best, most wonderful way possible. Don't burn yourself like I do. Just be smart enough to actually grab a hot pad. Okay, now the key to the Cafe Cubano is kind of your speed and timing here. So before we get into making it, let me walk you through what we're actually gonna do. To your mixing vessel, add your sugar. For however many servings of coffee you make, I use about like a spoonful of sugar. I know that is very vague, but this recipe, like the rest of them, is very much sweetened to your own preference. I'm gonna be making like 4 servings here, so I've got a good amount of sugar. But regardless, put that in the base, get your stirring utensil ready, and then put your mocha pot on. But be prepared to pull it off as soon as those first couple of really concentrated drops of coffee spill into your basin. You're gonna be taking those first couple of drops and pouring it into your sugar, then mixing those two together until like a very like kind of light colored paste or like a spuma forms. Let's get started, I'll show you. I'm starting with brewing with the lid on, but as soon as I hear that water start to rise through the mocha pot, I'm gonna open it up and keep a really close eye on those first couple of drops of coffee. Okay, I hear that slight whistle, watching for those first few drops. Okay, first few drops. Then we return it and let it brew as it normally would. While that happens, we're gonna whip this up. This is very much like split your attention. Okay, now I'm whipping up my coffee and espresso in here. What I'm doing is like a brisk back and forth motion, kind of whipping air into it, but also dissolving that sugar into the coffee. It should take on an almost like peanut butter-like color. Okay, this is what I have here at the end. It's kind of a foamy, sugary coffee sludge, if you will. Now we're gonna add in the rest of our mocha pot coffee. Give it a stir to fully combine, and then we can serve in our demi-tasse. Now, while the main body of this drink really holds on to that kind of coffee color and characteristic, you'll notice if you've made your kind of foam at the beginning correctly, there will be a really light colored glaze or almost crema on top of the drink, really making it look like espresso. But when you taste it, ooh, it's so good. This is, I mean, everything today has been crushable, but maybe this is the most crushable out of all of them. It's got this distinct, like lovely kind of thick foamy head on the top of it. It is sweet, it is warm, it's just comforting. It's just, I have no words. It's delicious. The Cafe Cubano is a fantastic drink that, with a little bit of practice and technique, can be very easy to make, and it gets you something that is like a sweet espresso kind of thing without needing an espresso machine. It's fantastic. However, as I said before, as much as I would like to finish both of these, we have one more to make. For this next one, we're gonna go to Hong Kong. Okay, moving on to our final international coffee drink, we have a drink from Hong Kong. This is a very common like street vendor drink, very common summer drink. This is gonna be called Yuenyueng, and it is essentially a coffee milk tea. This drink, honestly, more so than the rest of them, as much as I would love to hear all of your own personal recipes and experiences with these, this is the one that I think I'm most curious about because in my research, it seems like this is potentially the most regional and has the most regional variants out of everything. We have 3 core ingredients. We have coffee, we have tea, and then we have milk. However, in what ratio they are combined, in what order they are combined, seems to very much vary vendor to vendor and also neighborhood to neighborhood. So I'm gonna do my best to kind of combine and do it in the way that seems pretty intuitive to me, but if you've seen it made other ways or have made it other ways, do let me know because I would love to try those as well. But let's get started. Our ingredients first. I have a nice, very, very strong, very concentrated dark brewed coffee here. We're not going with something light or fruity or medium. We are going like traditional, quick, easy street coffee. Over here, I have a good amount of intensely brewed Ceylon black tea. I have evaporated milk. And for sweetness, which I do enjoy and should you enjoy, we also have sweetened condensed milk. This is a drink that can be served hot or cold. However, it seems to be most commonly served cold, so that's how we'll do it today. A cup, let's fill it with ice. Now, our first kind of variable to decide is what level of coffee we're gonna do to tea. It really seems to depend, again, vendor to vendor or personal preference. However, for the most part, the preference seems to be more tea than you put coffee. I'm gonna choose to mix my entire drink in this cup, so let's get started. Start with our tea. Beautiful, rich red color. We'll add our coffee next. Go in with our evaporated milk for the main component of the milk base. Then I like a little sweetness. Let's go in with our sweetened condensed milk. It's not a crazy amount, it feels appropriate. We're measuring with our heart here. Let's have a taste. Ooh, that is refreshing. That is very refreshing. No complaints there. It's tea, it's coffee, it's milk, it's sugar, it's delicious. I think this, out of most of these drinks, is the one that can have the most like personal play in it, be it that you have more ingredients to mess with rather than just coffee and sugar. So your mileage may vary as to what ratios and proportions you like, but this combination, the kind of the base of the tea being that like dark black tea, kind of tanniny, like really nice refreshing iced tea flavor with a really strong coffee that cuts through all of that, and then all softened and rounded out with milk, is just, it's lovely. It's simple. There's nothing more you could want out of this. A big cup of this on a hot summer day, delicious. I need to walk away from this. I could talk about it all day. And with that, we have our 4 international coffee drinks that you may have never have heard of. But if you haven't, and you like the sound of what you heard today, you can very easily make it home. Again, we have the Italian, Cafe Shakerato, we have the Cuban, Cafe Cubano, we have the Hong Kong Yuenyueng, and then we also have the Vietnamese Phê Sữa Đá. As I mentioned slightly before, I would love to hear any stories or variations or versions you have seen or experienced of these, because with these, there's only so many ways that I can kind of imagine or discover making them. Really what counts is what you've experienced on the ground drinking these yourself. It's the beautiful part of traditional espresso drinks, is we all have so many different experiences with them. That's the beauty of sharing it. So I'll leave it to you in the comments. But without further ado, my name is Morgan. You can find me here on YouTube plus Shorts, or you can find me on TikTok or Instagram almost every single day. If you want to find more recipes, tips, tricks, products, interesting things, Morgan Drinks Coffee is always there and full of fun stuff. Without further ado, I guess I have to decide which one of these to take with me. This is a hard choice, but I'm going to go with the Cubano. I don't make these very often, and they're delicious. So I'll see you all next time. Cheers!